everybody. I am going to camera, although, that's really close. I should keep it the other side. So I'm going to read from my notes from today while we wait for Susan, who's probably very busy working on the Undisclosed podcast. So I hope you all can hear me. The first day started off with a bunch of preliminary hearings, or applications rather, and something that was really important was that the prosecutor wanted Useless Steve, as you now know him, to testify anonymously. And he made an accusation that Steve, who now has a hashtag and has a Twitter following at Useless Steve, was being cyberbullied. So that was interesting and seemed quite far-fetched. The defense, Justin Brown, had a great quote, and he said, the public has a right to see witnesses and have the witness identify themselves. Also, co-counsel Nieto, he also made a great point, and he said, he was talking about, I guess he was trying to ask the judge, hey, do you think that we've been doing inappropriate things? We have a very small staff. We don't have time to engage in these type of antics, as opposed to the prosecution, who has, quote unquote, a legion of minions. So that was interesting. Now, Special Agent Fitzgerald. Oh my God, today was so exhausting because there was just so much wasted time with the questions and with the answers from both sides. I think the judge needs to rein everybody in and be more expeditious and move this case forward faster. Listen, my bottom line is I think there's no way Adnan is not going to be ruled in favor of. The result has to be that the judge finds in favor of giving him a new trial. But getting there is just painful. So Special Agent Fitzgerald continued his cross, and it was incredibly hostile and antagonistic to begin with because the agent kept accusing Justin Brown of presenting him with quote-unquote manipulated evidence. Justin's point seemed to be that this is what Cristina Gutierrez had, and this is all she had. And if that's all the defense had, which was a document with dates cut off and incoming times cut off, then how in the world was a defense attorney supposed to be able to, I'm trying to put this up somewhere so I can be seen but not, I'm sorry. I know that people hate when I change the thing, but that's just more reasonable. Sorry. Okay, so the issue is, how can a defense attorney be expected to deal with a document with all of these limitations? And he was putting it on the onus of the defense attorney to go further, to get further documents. And this then plays into Justin Brown's argument that she was in fact ineffective, because if she got that document and it was so limited and it wasn't a complete document, then perhaps she should have then subpoenaed the records from AT&T and gone further. But it was just painful. It was painful. Neither of them were getting to the point. It was just going round and round and round. And again, the judge should have gotten involved. I think you probably all saw my tweet that at one point Justin says, hey, you've had all weekend to work on this. And Agent Fitzgerald said, quote unquote, don't flatter yourself. So it was contentious. There was very intricate evidence about the cell phone towers, and while I do have some knowledge about this, I don't think I am knowledgeable enough to convey it to you properly, and I will leave it to Susan Simpson, who's probably going to come up with the Undisclosed podcast soon. And then finally, there were a lot of questions about what Woronowicz knew then and what he knows now. And Justin Brown was trying to ask Agent Fitzgerald questions on if you knew this, if meaning from Moranowitz's affidavit, which I had tweeted out, if you knew these points, then wouldn't you agree with my premise? And Fitzgerald, simply because he was being difficult, wouldn't agree with Justin. So that's problematic when a witness is taking it out against you personally rather than, answering the question. So then we continued with Irwin's cross, and I tweeted a lot about that, and a lot of the issues revolved around whether Cristina Gutierrez had access to all of the materials, whether a lot of the beginning cross revolved around the certain decisions, which I tweeted those out. Maryland versus Kolvicki, I may be saying that wrong, and Strickland, which is the one that lawyers, all of us know, and that those set forth the prongs of ineffective assistance of counsel. And this was a good quote. So Vignarajah kept trying to direct Irwin towards, okay, let's go back in time and remember when. And at some point, Irwin just looks at him and says, okay, I'm back in 99, 2000. I'm very comfortable. Talk to me. Just give it to me. They got specific into the ABA rules, 4.1 and 4.2. And then Vignarajah went into a series of hypotheticals, which were all difficult to follow, but involved, of course, alibi witnesses and what you would do and would not do. At one point, one of the scenarios involved somebody on a spaceship. I don't know. I think I lost it then. The problem I have with Irwin is that he started off as being incredibly charming and delightful and brilliant, of course, but then he turned, it really turned, he was disrespectful, he was unnecessarily antagonistic, and I felt that he made everybody in the audience quite uncomfortable. There was a point, which I tweeted this out in the afternoon continued cross, when Vignarajah was getting to the point of saying, okay, so would you not do something illegal, but he was almost saying like witness tampering. It was just really, really close to that. And Irwin just so goes, stop. But Vignarajah couldn't get a word. It was just like, stop talking, stop speaking. And quote unquote, if I thought a client was trying to obstruct justice, I'd tell the client to stop. So obviously he expressed that he would never do that. Okay. Here's a question that is bothering me just objectively, and that is, Cristina Gutierrez didn't get this case till April of 1999. All of the lawyers beforehand, there was 3 lawyers. There was McMillan, Floor, and Colbert. Nobody investigated Asia McClain. I have a problem with that. I think that's a problem because now it's not 1 lawyer who didn't do the job, it's 4. And especially because Asia's letters, dated March 1st and March 2nd, would have gone to a previous attorney. Fine. I don't even know what to say. The cross was tough to take. I think the prosecution spent a lot of time trying to say that Cristina Gutierrez never knew, even at the end of the trial, she never knew the time of death. So how was she to know? How significant Asia's testimony regarding Adnan's whereabouts between 2:15 and 2:40 that day were so significant? In fact, he read, I think, portions of her closing argument about even at that point, the time of death was so uncertain. And then Vignarajah submitted that to this day, we don't know when the time of death was. And there was a memo from July 7th of 1999 where Cristina Gutierrez said, I need to know the time of the death. What time of death was it? I want to know. And his answer was, in the afternoon, shortly after Hay left school for the day. So that premises that day was January 13th. But also, We don't know if he means left school for the day, meaning after some kind of practice or after hanging out after school. There's no, so we still didn't know the time of death. And to Cristina Gutierrez, even at closing arguments, the death was uncertain. Vignarajah also brought out that Uric suggested, both in his opening and his closing arguments, that the time of death was immediately after school. So my point, and again, I don't have as much information about the case as Robbie and Susan do, but what it seemed, and I think this is consistent with what they would say, is that there was nothing put into evidence as to the time of death. So it was only Uric's suggestion as a prosecutor in opening and closing argument. So it was only argument that the time of death was immediately after school. But that time of death is not certain. So Vignarajah tried to establish today that 2:15 to 2:40 was not, in fact, the time of death. Okay, so some more like great quotes from the afternoon. At some point, so Vignarajah is going on his line of cross about Cristina Gutierrez putting on a defense, and then it's just everything stopped. It was so contentious this afternoon, and at some point, Erwin just starts, I wouldn't say yelling, but loudly saying, "Did she produce an alibi defense? Did she produce an alibi defense at trial? Did she? Did she?" And it was just difficult. Okay, so I tweeted out a bunch of the other quotes, and I thought this was a powerful one that Erwin said to Vignarajah: "You're begging the world to think she had a strategy." She meaning Cristina Gutierrez. And then went on to say there was no analysis, no strategy. Yeah, and then there was this whole part of the argument where Vignarajah is trying to say that she did have a defense. So it's not like she didn't have a defense. Her defense was that he had this custom and practice, this routine, and she presented witnesses to testify as to this routine, that it was school, track, mosque, every day. And also part of that, he spent a lot of time to demonstrate that when Adnan went to the library, it was not the Woodlawn Library, it was a school library. So a lot of that came in. And I thought, again, Erwin was steadfast and, quote unquote, someone being accused of murder is not routine. So he's not going to rely on the routine. Okay, so the afternoon, we finally heard from Officer Steve, who was just this, like, sweet man who has been in security for 30 years. I guess he's in his mid-50s, maybe 60. Yeah, just sweet, nice. He signed this affidavit, which basically said, "I am certain that Adnan wasn't at the library at that time." But Nieto, Brown's co-counsel, he crushed it. This was like TV stuff. He was so great. It was so rhythmical and beautiful, and Nieto just crushed it and just made him say that he wasn't in charge of the video. He had no access to surveillance. He had no access to VHS tapes. He got Steve to agree that he was actually a deterrent, and that was his job, that people were coming in and out. He was all over the place. He was in, he was out. He could have missed people coming in and out. And bottom line, quote, "Can you say for certain whether Syed was in the library?" Answer, no. It was one of the best moments. And I don't know. There was nothing Vignarajah got. He got crushed. It was just, there was nothing. He did some redirect. It didn't make any sense to me about why it was important. He made up some comments about that, okay, maybe this is significant, that back in March of 1999, there are notes that show that Steve was interviewed at the time, perhaps by the attorneys at the time, Flora and Colbert, and as he's sitting here today, he doesn't remember any of that, so maybe that's significant. Okay. Then finally, at 4:30, like 4:20, we get back to the defense case. the defense tries to enter into evidence the attorney grievance file against Cristina Gutierrez, and the judge didn't allow it in. And I think the judge was right. There was no reason for it to get in, and not just because of the defense's claim and the prosecution's claims, which were that it doesn't go to ineffective assistance of counsel claims like Adnan's claims. It's not about alibi. It's not about the cell phone. It's not in line. Ooh, sorry, guys. It's not. It's not in line with post-conviction rules, and it's not. Well, this is what I said. It's not. The claim is not analogous to Adnan's case at all, and that ultimately, which is the standard that we also look at often, is whether something is more prejudicial than probative. And it is more prejudicial, and it's no matter what you feel about this case, it really is. Cristina Gutierrez, in essence, as Justin Brown said, took a guilty plea. She didn't fight being disbarred. She agreed to disbarment. And the judge knows the circumstances. Forget about this case. The judge knows Cristina Gutierrez. He knows everybody involved. It's just, it's too much. And I also think, and some of the press people were saying this, that it almost seemed that the judge had made up his mind, saying, listen, the kid's going to get a new trial. Let's not over dramatize this, and that's enough. But for the record, the judge did allow that the attorney grievance file was marked for identification, so therefore the judge can at least look at it. And the last thing today, which was so weird, was I just don't get this. I'll tell you. Okay, so the affidavit of Javon Gordon. Javon Gordon is the one who told investigators that Adnan was sending things to a girl, asking her to type it. Fine. That affidavit gets admitted. It doesn't make sense to me because the affidavit gets admitted without Vignarajah having an opportunity to cross-examine the witness. And even though this is a hearing and the burden is less and the rules are less stringent, this doesn't make sense to me, because this is huge. Vignarajah is the one who brought out through Asia's cross-examination that Gordon had made this claim. So why doesn't he get produced? And then at 5-something, both sides rested. The defense is calling rebuttal. We'll be back in court depending on the weather. I don't know, but I'll keep you guys posted, and I'll just keep tweeting out some stuff and questions and answers and everything. But thanks for following.